Yep, it's me, the old witch, mistress of the haunt of fear. This time, for the offering from my cauldron, I've dredged up a tale told to me by Larry Douglas, a theatrical man. It's in his own words, and he calls it The Ventriloquist's Dummy.
It had been years since I'd seen Charles Jerome. As I studied his pale, drawn face, I was shocked to see how much he'd changed. His warm smile had disappeared. In its place was a tight grimace. His eyes that once sparkled happily were sad and bloodshot, encircled by tired lines. "Charles, you old son of a gun! How are you? I've been looking high and low for you."
Larry Douglas. Come in.
Charles stepped back and I entered his hotel room. I looked around. The place was bare except for an iron bed and a broken chest of drawers. I couldn't believe my eyes.
How did you find me, Larry?
Your old agent told me where you were living. I didn't know things were so bad with you, Charlie. Charles Jerome had been a famous ventriloquist. 10 years before, he'd been a star. His act had been fantastic. His dummy had been so lifelike. No one had ever seen his lips move. He'd been acclaimed by audiences wherever he'd performed.
I'm not working anymore, Larry.
Yes, your agent told me. He said you'd refused all offers. He said you'd retired. Charles nodded. I looked at his hand, his left hand, the hand he'd used to manipulate his dummy.
Retired? Yes, you can call it that.
If you're retired, why do you still keep your hand gloved? Charlie had always kept his dummy hand encased in a heavy woolen mitten. I remembered how I'd kidded him about it.
Just force of habit, I guess.
Tell me, Charles, do you still have Morty, your dummy? Charles stared at me for a moment. Then his glance shot across the room to a battered suitcase in the corner. "Oh, yes, I see. I thought so. How is he, the little..."
Don't touch that suitcase!
I stopped in my tracks. Charles's voice had a wild, frightened ring in it. "Course not, Charles. If you'd rather I wouldn't. Now let's get down to business. I've come to offer you a job."
A job? But I told you, I'm not working anymore.
"Look, Charles, I'm the entertainment director for a big resort hotel in the mountains. This can mean a lot to you. It can put you back on top if they like you. What do you say? I have a spot for the next weekend."
No, I won't do it. I'm through performing. Through.
As I drove back upstate, I kept thinking of Charles Jerome. He'd fallen a long way. I remembered back to those days when he thrilled audiences, had them rolling in the aisles. "You were great tonight, Charles."
You mean Morty here was great, Larry?
Charles had always referred to Morty as though it were a real person. Certainly the dummy behaved that way. It was the incredible way Charles used to manipulate it. And although I used to think it was just a publicity stunt, Charles had guarded the manipulating hand well. "Why do you always wear that heavy woolen mitten, Charles?"
My hand is my fortune. I've got to protect it.
I'd been Charles's agent back in those years. When I'd gotten an offer out in Hollywood, I'd sold his account. That was the last I'd seen of him, although I'd followed his career in the trade papers. What's this? Charles Jerome leaves show after mysterious death of dancer on same bill. It had been after that unexplained death that Charles had begun his downward slide. The girl had been attacked, it seemed, by a horde of rats. "Nothing else could have ripped her up like that except small, sharp-toothed animals, such as rats." I'd heard little about him after that. Then when I'd taken the job as entertainment director for the White Lake Hotel,
We want top-notch, out-of-the-ordinary talent, Larry.
I think I know one act you'll like. I'd booked the acts I'd needed and then looked up Charles. Now I was driving back to the hotel. The spot's still open for the next weekend. Maybe he'll change his mind. I'll give him a little time to think it over. I was so busy the next few days planning the midweek shows that I completely forgot about Charles Jerome. Then on Friday morning I looked up from my desk to see... Charles, you did come! I'm so happy.
I hope the spot is still open, Larry.
There was a strange look in Charles's eyes as he stood before my desk. He seemed to be staring right through me. Of course, Charles, the spot is yours. I'll arrange for your room.
That's good of you, Larry.
Charles's mittened hand hung at his side. In his other hand he clutched the suitcase containing Morty, his dummy. What made you change your mind, Charles?
Why, I just decided to come out of retirement. That's all.
A bellhop knocked and entered. Take Mr. Jerome to the entertainer's cottage, Joe. Give him a nice room.
Yes, sir. Right this way, sir.
I watched out of my office window in the recreation hall as Charles moved down the walk, clutching his suitcase, following the bellhop. His feet seemed to drag, and he staggered a little. Poor fellow. Probably took a few shots of liquor to bolster himself. He'll be all right, just as soon as the curtain opens. That night, since it was a weekend, the recreation hall was jammed. The show moved along smoothly. Then it came time for Charles's act. I saw him standing in the wings holding Morty, his familiar dummy, as the announcer introduced him.
And now, for his first performance anywhere after 10 years of retirement, the world-famous ventriloquist, Mr. Charles Jerome and Morty!
Charles came out on the stage with Morty seated in the crook of his right arm. There was some scattered applause from those who remembered the great man in his prime. Morty began to eye the audience, looking from face to face.
Isn't he cute? He looks so real.
Like a live boy. Suddenly Morty stopped. His glance had fallen upon a rather attractive young woman seated near me. He winked slyly and quipped,
I'll see you tonight, honey. After the show.
It was the perfect thing to say. The audience howled. You know the crowd that frequents a resort like that. Women on vacations looking for rich husbands, men hunting for wealthy wives. It always ends up like a rat race, with everyone lying to everyone else. Anyway, they loved Charles and his dummy.
So, Mr. Jerome, you know a better way to study astronomy?
Ho, ho, ho.
There, a scream!
After the show, I went backstage to congratulate Charles on his wonderful performance. He'd outdone himself. He'd manipulated Morty better than ever before.
Mr. Jerome? Why, he left the hall as soon as he came off stage.
Oh, he must have gone on back to the entertainer's cottage. I moved down the walk to the cottage. Back at the hall, the guests were pouring out of the exits, their laughter drifting across the night air toward me. I could hear Charles's name referred to in the babble of conversation. They liked him. The cottage door slammed behind me and silence closed in as I stood in the semi-darkness. I gazed down the corridor at the 6 doors. Now, which one is Charles's? Suddenly, the blood froze in my veins. Voices exploded from behind one of the doors. Loud voices, heated with anger. Charles, using his normal voice, was arguing with himself, using Morty's voice.
No, I heard! I'm not going to let you!
Yes, you will. I'll make you.
You're too weak to stop me!
I stood outside the door for a moment, listening to the raving. Good Lord. He's out of his mind. He's fighting with that dummy of his over the girl in the audience. I knocked. The yelling stopped abruptly. I heard a short whimper and then Charles opened the door. His eyes were red as though he'd been crying. I wanted to congratulate you, Charles. The audience loved you.
Thank you, Larry. I'm tired. I must go to bed now. So I won't invite you in.
Charles closed the door and I stood there feeling foolish. I shrugged and returned to the rec hall. There was some work I had to do before I could go to bed. Later, as I sat at my desk... What was that? I rushed outside. It was pitch black. I ran down toward the lake in the direction of the scream. I tripped over something soft lying in my path and went sprawling. When I lit a match... Oh my God! A woman! She's dead! Ripped to pieces! As if she'd been attacked by small sharp-toothed animals. By rats! Good Lord! It was the same woman that Charles had had Morty quipped to. I thought of the dancer that had died the same way 10 years before. I rushed to the cottage and flung open Charles's door. Charles! He's gone. The suitcase containing Charles's dummy sat on the floor in the corner. I moved toward it. I had to see. I threw back the lid. What the dummy has no head. I stared down at the headless ventriloquist dummy. I couldn't understand it. Then I saw other things in the suitcase. Makeup? The suitcase has makeup in it. A shout from the hotel kitchen drew my attention. I rushed across the grass and onto the porch. The chef stood wide-eyed, waving his arms. What happened?
He take my cleaver! He steal my cleaver! That ventriloquist!
I looked around. A mitten lay on the floor at my feet. I picked it up. It was covered with blood. Suddenly I heard Charles's voice coming from behind some bushes. Charles!
I'm going to get rid of you, once and for all. You hideous fiend! You little beast!
As I rushed toward the bushes, I heard Morty's voice, shouting, screaming. Then a crawling sensation started up my spine. The voices overlapped. There were two voices.
No! Don't, Charles! Don't! It's no use! I'm freeing myself! For good!
As I swung around the bush, I caught sight of a gleam of steel in the blackness. Charles stood over a tree stump, his left forearm pressed on its flat top, and he was bringing the cleaver down upon it.
No! No! Ah!
Morty's scream was cut short as the cleaver fell. A nauseating fanged head, shriveled and ugly, rolled to my feet.
I'm rid of you! Rid of you!
Oh my God! Charles pitched forward and fell. His left hand had been severed at the wrist. Now I knew why he'd always worn the mitten. Instead of a left hand, a hideous head had grown from his wrist.
I had to do it, Larry. 10 years ago, he killed that dancer. He took over my body and killed her.
You're bleeding, Charles. I've got to get you a doctor.
When I was a child, they said I had a deformed hand. But as I grew up, that horrible head developed. Soon it opened its wicked eyes and began to talk. I became a ventriloquist. Used it as a dummy.
That explains the realistic movements Morty always had.
Then it began to wrest control of my body while I slept. I had to retire from show business. I kept the head drugged. But you You came and offered me work. Tonight it took over again. I couldn't stop it.
I'll go for the doctor, Charles. I'll be right back. I tied a crude tourniquet on Charles's wrist and rushed off. When I got back, Charles was dead. He'd been torn to shreds. The severed head lay nearby. The head wasn't quite dead. With its last thread of life, it attacked Charles. They've destroyed each other.
Well, that's the yarn Larry palmed off on me, so I just handed it down to you. I hope you liked it. Next time you see a ventriloquist, look carefully to see how he holds his dummy. If he's reaching in too far, beware. Well, we'll all see you next in the Vault of Horror. Don't forget to read the Crypt Keeper's Corner for back issue and subscription info. Bye now.